For the ninth straight day today, absolute ruckus and logjam continued in the parliament. Only this time, it wasn't over the Manipur violence, but the Delhi Ordinance, or as it is called by its new name, the Delhi Services Bill. Now, the bill, which has been a flashpoint between the centre and Delhi's Aam Aadmi Party government, was tabled in the Lok Sabha by Union Home Minister Amit Shah today. Amid loud sloganeering while introducing the bill in the parliament, Amit Shah said the constitution gives the parliament all the right to bring any law with respect to Delhi. Listen in.
हमारे संविधान ने इस सदन को संपूर्ण सत्ता दी है कि दिल्ली राज्य के लिए किसी भी कानून को लेकर आने की। दूसरा मुद्दा उठाया गया सुप्रीम कोर्ट के जजमेंट का, जो हमारे माननीय सांसद बीजेडी के बताया सर्वोच्च न्यायालय के पैरा 6 जजमेंट के पैरा 6, 95 और पैरा 164 एफ, इसके संबंध में सर्वोच्च न्यायालय ने स्पष्ट किया है कि संसद दिल्ली संघ राज्य क्षेत्र के लिए कोई भी कानून बना सकता है।
Meanwhile, the opposition parties were quick to oppose it, as they have been, calling it undemocratic and unconstitutional and a direct attack on federalism.
ये देश में, दिल्ली में खास तौर पे डेमोक्रेसी को बाबूक्रेसी में बदल देता है। यानी कि दिल्ली को अब दिल्ली की चुनी हुई सरकार नहीं चलाएगी, चंद यूपीएससी पास बाबू और उपराज्यपाल चलाएंगे। सारी शक्तियां चुनी हुई सरकार से छीनकर बीजेपी द्वारा अपॉइंटेड उपराज्यपाल में लीन करने का प्रयास इस बिल के माध्यम से किया जा रहा है। और जो बिल लाया गया है ऑर्डिनेंस को रिप्लेस करने के लिए, वो बिल ऑर्डिनेंस से भी ज्यादा खतरनाक है देश के लोकतंत्र के लिए, देश के संविधान के लिए।
The bill violates the defining feature of a federal democracy, the division of power. It undermines the Delhi Legislative Assembly and the Delhi government. And by trying to supersede the Supreme Court's decision on the matter, the union government appears to undermine the constitutional principle of federalism. Bill infringes the principle of representative democracy, which is a basic feature of the Constitution. The legislators are accountable to their electorate. The electorate must have a say in who governs them. If the Delhi government is not able to control and hold to account the officers posted in its service, sir, the fact is that it's their responsibility. The legislature cannot be fulfilled. The principle of collective responsibility extends to the responsibility, sir, of the government for its own officers. Sir, you cannot give bureaucrats the authority that belongs to elect.
I am before you, sir. The bill vindicates the outrageous infringement of this government upon the territory of the states. It is designed of digging up a graveyard for cooperative federalism. Sir, ये विधायक निर्वाचित दिल्ली विधानसभा से सेवाओं से संबंधित मामलों को कानून बनाने की शक्ति को वापस ले लेता है। बड़े संक्षेप में 4 बिंदु पे बात करना चाहते हैं। संविधान की संविधान की 7वीं अनुसूची के तहत सेवाएं राज्य का विषय है, इसलिए एनसीटी विधानसभा को एनसीटी की सेवाओं से संबंधित सभी विषयों पर बिना किसी गतिरोध अड़चन के कानून पारित करने का अधिकार होना चाहिए था। इस प्रकार यह विधायक संविधान का स्पष्ट उल्लंघन है।
ये चेस और लूडो का खेल हो रहा है सर। उधर से चेस खेला जा रहा है, इधर लूडो खेला जा रहा है। सर, मैं इसलिए अपोज कर रहा हूं कि ये आर्टिकल 123 का वायलेशन है। एक सिंपल बिल से आप संविधान को अमेंड नहीं कर सकते। तीसरा, ये थ्योरी ऑफ सेपरेशन ऑफ पावर्स का वायलेशन है। चौथा ये है कि सर, सुप्रीम कोर्ट का 4 जुलाई 2018 का 5 जजेस का जजमेंट है। तो इसीलिए मैं ये कहता हूं कि ये इस हाउस को लेजिस्लेटिव कॉम्पिटेंस नहीं है, इसलिए मैं इस बिल की मुखालिफत कर रहा हूं। अब जबकि हमारे लीडर ऑपोजिशन ने अलाउ कर दिया बगैर प्रधानमंत्री के, मेरी आपसे गुजारिश है सर, मैं डिवीजन पूछूंगा, अब डिवीजन कराइए।
All right, before I bring in my panelists, let's also quickly tell you the difference between the older version, which was Delhi Ordinance, and the new Delhi Services Bill, the changes that the government has made. First of all, the new bill doesn't restrict the State Assembly from enacting any law on services, which was the case earlier. Secondly, the bill will give the central government more power than the Delhi government on appointment of IAS officers and DANICs or the Dadra and Nagar Haveli civil services officers. Third, the final buck will stop with the LG. The role of the Delhi government will stop at making the recommendation, with the bill letting the LG have the power to turn down those recommendations or seek modifications. Fourthly, changes to appointment process. The new bill aims to reduce the influence of ministers in appointments of officers. It removes the requirement for orders or directions of ministers related to proposals or matters to be referred to the central government before the Lieutenant Governor and the Chief Minister. Now, the bill, like the ordinance, aims to set up the National Capital Civil Service Authority. But earlier, the NCCSA had to submit an annual report of its activities to both the Parliament as well as the Delhi Assembly. But under the new bill, the Delhi government does not have to provide such annual reports to the central government. That by far are the broad differences between the Delhi Ordinance and the new Delhi Services Bill that was tabled in the Lok Sabha by the Union Home Minister. Let me get in my panelists now and get their perspective and understand the reasons behind what they're saying, what they are saying about the Delhi Services Bill. Gopal Krishna Agarwal from the BJP is joining us tonight. Dr. Piyush Joshi, political analyst, is also joining us, and Rakesh Sinha, advocate, Delhi High Court, is joining us tonight as well. Let me first go across to Gopal Krishna Agarwal. Gopal Krishna Agarwal, we have the Delhi Services Bill in the Lok Sabha, which was tabled by the Union Home Minister today. And he made it clear that, the House can get any bill passed into a law and all of that. But, why these changes and why this insistence on only the LG taking the final decision and the buck really stopping with the LG?
The issue in the Delhi was a complicated one because of duality of authority and the way the anarchy government that the AAP had been working in the Delhi. And because it's a capital of the country, the international the image of the country is also dependent on how the Delhi government works and how Delhi works. And at times when there were international seminars and other, the way the AAP was working was not conducive to the overall governance of Delhi. So some of the issues that were complicated and the duality of the responsibility, etc., was creating the differences. Therefore, as the Parliament has the right, after discussion and what is good for the particularly for the Delhi, that has been done, and it is and I think it was required, and it has been the support of all the members, because we also remember the way that our government earlier said that even we will not allow 26th January parade, we will sit on dharna in the road. The way anarchy was being created, the way the officers were being transferred, the way they were operating, all the things cumulatively made it a point for the central government or Parliament to enact this law.
Okay, let me go across to Dr. Piyush Joshi. Dr. Piyush Joshi, the Home Minister and the government have been saying that there is no constitutional basis to the objections that the opposition is making, that the Delhi government is making. How do you really see this, and what do you make of this new Delhi Services Bill now, as it is called?
I'm not a lawyer, so I'm not going to be speaking from a lawyer's perspective. I'm a physician by profession, so I'll be speaking from a common man's perspective. Yeah. But how do I see this? The Aam Aadmi Party government is not elected once, twice, but 3 times in a row by the people of Delhi. It is the elected legislature which is responsible to the electorate of Delhi, and they are going to be reporting to the ultimate bosses of this country, which are the people of the Delhi, which are the people of the country. And in this particular case, they will be reporting to the people of Delhi. So henceforth, what happens when the Arvind Kejriwal government is re-elected in 2020? The union government goes to the parliament and brings in an amendment to the GNCTD Act. That amendment was brought in 2021, which prevented the legislature, that is the Legislative Assembly of Delhi, to enact any laws or form any committees, involving the day-to-day affairs of the administration. So if you prevent a government from forming any kind of committee or from enacting any laws involving the day-to-day administration, then how is this government supposed to be functioning? So what does the Arvind Kejriwal government do? They go to the Supreme Court, which is the ultimate authority, the constitutional bench of 5 judges. They adjudicate on the matter with unanimity. As soon as the judgment is passed, the very next day the government brings in an ordinance. So the intent is very clear. The intention is very clear that the government does not, the union government does not want the government of Delhi to function properly. They are taking up cheap political pot shots at the government. They may be legally right or they are legally wrong. This is for the Supreme Court to judge. Supreme Court is still hearing on the matter. The Supreme Court has referred to the matter to the constitutional bench again. So we are hopeful that the Supreme Court will adjudicate favorably in the matter. Having said that, it is very clear as daylight to each and everyone watching. It is very clear, if you do not want the officers to be accountable to the ministers, if you do not want the officers to be accountable to the chief minister, it is reducing the power directly. It is reducing the power of the elected government, preventing them from functioning. And henceforth, it is against the basic nature of cooperative federalism. Henceforth, it is digging the grave of the cooperative federal structure of this country. We have seen in separate states like Bengal and Tamil Nadu and Karnataka, where the governor is at loggerheads with the elected chief minister. So this is not new for this government. This government is an autocratic regime, and they are working in a similar fashion. And that is why, as an Aam Aadmi Party supporter, I and of course the party is opposing it wherever it can. At the floor of the parliament, at the floor of the Lok Sabha, we are opposing. At the floor of the Rajya Sabha, we will oppose. And even in the court, we are opposing. We are patiently hearing. We are patiently requesting the Supreme Court to kindly adjudicate on the matter. चोर की दाढ़ी में तिनका और ये तिनका बहुत साफ है.
Okay. Rakesh Sinha, as somebody who practices law, help us understand. In terms of the legalities involved, in terms of the tussle, the war of words that is going on between the centre and the Delhi government, this new Delhi Services Bill being called unconstitutional, the Home Minister, the government saying that there is no constitutional basis to these objections. How do you see it?
As you said, that the matter is still there in the Supreme Court and it has been referred to a constitutional bench. So all these questions that you are asking will be rightly answered by the Supreme Court. What I can see here that this ordinance this bill is being introduced in the Parliament under the gap that Parliament has the power. Fine, Parliament had definitely some powers, but we all know under the Constitution, the Parliament doesn't have the absolute power. There are certain restrictions which we know as basic structures. So what I can see in this bill, it is going to hit many settled principles of the constitutional working in India. For instance, like with an ordinance, there cannot be a kind of constitutional amendment. With an ordinance is a kind of measure which is of urgent nature when you need a law to be brought in because of certain urgency. A constitutional amendment cannot be brought in with the help of an ordinance. So from that point of view, I can say that the ordinance is per se illegal. Secondly, that if there is a power in the Parliament that they can frame any law related to the NCT of Delhi. But the point is that whether there is a limit of passing of such order, passing of such laws or not. Like every state capitals in the world, wherever there is a capital, they have limited powers. We do understand that. They do not have absolute powers. But whatever powers they have, they should be allowed to exercise those powers, do their work with the help of the bureaucracy. After all, what the Supreme Court had said in its judgment, judgment, that about triple chain of accountability. Where is this triple chain of accountability now after this bill? The executive is not reporting to the ministers. Minister will not be reporting to the minister. Will have to report to legislature. Legislature is reporting accountable to the people. So unless there is an accountability on the part of the civil services, of the officers towards the minister and the minister to the legislature and to the people, then this entire exercise of a democratically elected government is a failure. We do not need to elect somebody as a government. Thereafter, you can have a permanent executive.
But you know, of course, Rakesh Sinha. Yeah. Rakesh Sinha, you know, of course, Delhi has also, it has been conferred with a special status. So it's not like any other normal national capital that you see around the world. But stay with us, all of you. I'm also joined by Mr. PDT Achari, who is a constitutional expert. Let me put this across to him and understand from him where this really stands. Let's get him on this. All right, Mr. Achari is there with us. PDT Achari, welcome to Mirror Now. Help us understand the constitutional basis of this and how this really pans out in a special case such as the Union Territory of Delhi.
So in order to understand the content and the thrust of this bill that has been brought in, we must take a look at the constitutional provision relating to Delhi, that is Article 239 AA. Particularly Clause 3. Clause 3 says, in simple terms, in simple language, if I put it, all the items under the state list in the 7th schedule of the Constitution will be available to the government of Delhi, which includes the services. And that is why the Supreme Court, the constitutional bench of the Supreme Court had said that all the items in the state list will come under the government of Delhi along with services. Services will be under the state government, the Delhi government. Now, if you look at this bill, was earlier the ordinance was there, and now there is a slight change in the bill. Now, even after this change, if you look at this bill carefully, you will find that all the powers which have been given to the state government of Delhi by the Constitution, that is Article 239 AA3, have been taken away through this bill and vested in the Lieutenant Governor. Now, for example, an authority has been proposed in this bill, an authority, National Capital Civil Services Authority. Now, this authority will deal with the posting and transfer, and also the vigilance and non-vigilance cases involving offices of the All India Services and also the DANICs. Now, how will this authority function? This authority is headed by the Chief Minister, of course, but then the majority will be that of the bureaucrats, that is the Chief Secretary and the Home Secretary. Now, in a meeting which is held by this authority, the majority will be of the officers. So they can vote out the Chief Minister. This was there in the ordinance, and this continues in the bill. Now, this authority will make recommendations about posting and transfers of officers of All India Services, that is IAS, and then the DANICs officers. It will go to the Lieutenant Governor. So after voting out the Chief Minister, the recommendation of these two officers will go to the Lieutenant Governor, who will decide this issue finally. So the final decision is that of the Lieutenant Governor, not of the government. Under Article 239 AA3,
okay,
all these matters should be decided by the government, that is a government, a council of ministers headed by the chief minister. But now it will be decided finally by the lieutenant governor. Now this is a major provision in this law. Now the point is whether such a bill will hold up before the court. Now I will just briefly explain that. You know, under 239 AA clause 7, Parliament can make a law to give effect to the provisions of 239 AA and also to supplement the provisions of 239 AA. When you say to supplement the provisions of the constitutional provision 239 AA, it means it will improve upon that or fill up the gap. It is not a bill which will go or which can go against the provisions of the Constitution. So that means the Parliament's power to make a law relating to Delhi will be a supplemental law which will only supplement the provisions of Article 239 AA. It cannot go against the provisions contained in the Constitution, that is 239 AA. Now, as I explained in the beginning, 239 AA3 gives the government, state government, control over the bureaucracy services. But this bill takes away that control.
Okay.
Now the point is, can Parliament, through a legislation, take away these powers which have been given by the Constitution? That is the point which needs to be decided. And I would say that if this bill has been brought here under Article 239 AA 7. Now this actually limits the power of Parliament to make a law in relation to Delhi. It can only supplement a law made by Parliament in this respect, can only supplement the provisions, and it cannot supplant that provision contained in Article 239 AA.
Okay.
Therefore, my point is that a bill like this goes counter to the provisions of the Constitution, and therefore, I think it cannot stand the scrutiny of the court.
Okay. PDT Achari, also help me understand in that context, very, very thoroughly you have explained to our viewers all these provisions that are under the various articles and their clauses in the Constitution. But with the Home Minister saying that under Article 249, the Parliament can make, any law, how does that, how is that relevant in this context? And how do we understand the Home Minister's statement in what you just explained?
The general provision is that Parliament can make any law in relation to a union territory on any subject. But that is not the law which has been brought here. Here the law has been brought under 239 AA 7. That makes all the difference. It is not an independent law. It is an amendment to the National Capital Territory Act. Therefore, it's not an independent law that has been brought here. This is a law which is supplemental to the provisions of the Constitution. That means this law has been brought here under Article 239 AA 7. And that makes a lot of difference. When the law is made under Article 239 AA 7, it can only supplement the provisions of the Constitution, and it cannot be an independent law. That makes a lot of difference in this matter.
All right. Okay, let me take this across to Gopal Krishna Agarwal. Gopal Krishna Agarwal, you heard Mr. Achari there explaining every bit of what the Constitution entails. And clearly he said that Article 239 AA Clause 7 is to supplement what is already existing. It is not to replace or supplant a law. It is just supplementing a law that already exists. How does the government really plan to go through this with the Home Minister saying that, the Parliament can make a law and under Article 249 when actually the bill has been brought under Clause 7 of 239 AA?
I could not hear Mr. Achari if the voice was breaking, but what I understand is that our constitution allows parliament to pass bills which are required for the administration and governance. And after debate and discussions, once the parliament passes, the Supreme Court has under its power that any amendment or laws made by the parliament has to pass the test of basic structure of the constitution. So if anything which is violating the constitution or the basic structure of the constitution, definitely it will be under the scrutiny of the Supreme Court, the highest court of the country. But you cannot unilaterally decide on the limiting the powers of the parliament to pass any bill. Second point that I want to tell is that many people are talking that the spirit of the bill is against the cooperative federalism or anything. The question is cooperative federalism has to move at both sides. Not only the central government, but the state government has to work in cohesion with the central government. And Delhi has a special category. It is not a full state. Many of the the police and law and order and many of the things are within the jurisdiction of the central government. And it is required that the governance is the power, the Delhi, the administrative head, LG is not the governor as other state, it's a special status. So central government has a bigger say. It is a partial state that the Delhi is. And ultimately, any discussion or debate about restricting the power of the parliament.
But Gopal Krishna Agarwal, you heard Mr. Achari, PDT Achari clearly explain that it is only when the government of the national capital is voted out, does the final buck, does the final word, does the final authority go to the LG. Till then, of course, there are various sectors, various areas where the elected government of the national capital will have the final word.
No, the powers between the center and the state in the case of Delhi are very clearly segregated by the administration and operation of the Delhi. And it is not the elected government itself in Delhi that they will decide all the issues or administration. And then requirement of the governance for Delhi is definitely the responsibility of the center. And if anything is beyond the power of the parliament, Mr. Achari alone cannot decide that what is constitutional and unconstitutional. It is the Supreme Court which can go into the depth of the scrutiny of this thing. I was not able to hear what Mr. Achari said.
We'll let the Supreme Court decide, but
ultimately the Supreme Court
Dr. Piyush Joshi wanted to respond to you.
There are in our constitution, in the constitution, the
Gopal Krishna Agarwal, Dr. Piyush Joshi wants to make a point. Let's listen to him.
I just wanted to say, why would you want to bring such an ordinance in the first place, or a bill in such a manner? Mr. Agarwal has already himself told that except for land, law and order and police, all the matters are to be administered by the government of Delhi, state government of Delhi. So let them govern. Why do you want to take away the power? Because you feel that they are anarchists. The people of Delhi do not feel that they are anarchists. They are voting Arvind Kejriwal and Aam Aadmi Party again and again back into the power because they see some merit in the way they are functioning, because they see some merit in the way Delhi is being governed. That is why they are not only voting Arvind Kejriwal in the state assembly, they have also voted Aam Aadmi Party in the MCD elections. Because you cannot defeat them in the democratic battle of elections. That's why you want to go the unconstitutional way and form such laws. ultimately, I am very, very hopeful that the Honorable Supreme Court is going to decide favorably like it has decided previously as well. Previously as well, there was a division of power which has been described by the Supreme Court that land, law and order and police are to be administered by the union government because it's a national capital, and rest of the matters like education, healthcare, even road transport and all that, and that is to be administered by Delhi. It is very, very clear that the intention of the central government, union government is malicious. They do not have a pure agenda. Their agenda is to sabotage the functioning of the Delhi government. Their agenda is to dub all the opposition parties as dysfunctional, and that is why they have brought this bill in the parliament. And I'm sure Supreme Court would adjudicate
Gopal Krishna
favorably
Agarwal,
and
would
give
you
a
like to
fitting reply.
respond to that? Okay.
Neither
The
Mr.
intention
Piyush
behind
or Mr.
the
Acharya or
intention with
anybody-
which the government has brought in this bill.
The intention is very clear that it is within the power of the parliament to enact laws, because in our constitution, the making laws is the responsibility of the parliament. The power of making laws is with the parliament. The power of judiciary is about whether the laws have been passed are constitutional or not. They can disturb the basic structure of the constitution. Otherwise, it is within the purview of the parliament to enact and pass laws. And the governance of Delhi is also an important responsibility of the central government. The way the state government, Delhi government was functioning, there were certain gaps in the governments and administration, the way they were operating. They were fighting with loggerheads with the LG. So the clarity of the law required that this law be passed. And it is not the Mr. Piyush who will decide whether it is constitutional or unconstitutional. Parliament has been passing laws which have been reversing even the decisions of the Supreme Court. And later on, where if the act or any law passed by the parliament is found to be disturbing the basic structure of the constitution, the Supreme Court has taken cognizance of it and reversed those laws. So it is balance of power between the enactment of the laws and the administration of justice. The Supreme Court and the judicial systems have to act according to laws passed by the parliament. And if any act which is passed by the parliament for the good governance or administration, and there is definitely a difference of opinion between the Supreme Court, between the Delhi government and the central government and the LG and the Chief Minister of Delhi. Why Arvind Kejriwal ji has not taken any department? Why he is administrating without any portfolio? There are several issues. So these issues have to be settled. Powers have to be segregated, and Gopal, they have to be clearly defined.
Gopal Krishna Agarwal, there will be several times when the center and the Delhi government will be at loggerheads on various issues, but that doesn't mean that you come up with a new bill every time in the parliament and try and make it into a law, and this whole tussle going on in the parliament. We see, and in all of this, we see, of course, the sufferers are the ones who are awaiting their transfer. We had the DERC case there also with the chairperson not being appointed. All of these things are suffering because of the power tussle that is going on between the center and the AAP government.
It is not a power tussle. It is the clarity of administration and governance which is required at this point of time. The way Delhi government is functioning, the way it is not functioning, all these, like Delhi is a special case. Many of the powers have not been clarified. It's an ongoing process. The amendment, there are several amendments. There are several new laws. They are all there for clarification of the issues where there is difference of opinion. But if anybody has objection, first thing is, if we are talking about the constitutionality of this bill, it's very clear that the parliament is within its law, that within its power to pass this law. And the second thing is, if this central government feels, the parliament feels, the Rajya Sabha and Lok Sabha feels that this is a requirement for the governance and for the administration of Delhi, they have passed it. Opposition can discuss. If you say that elected government in Delhi has absolute power, then elected government at the center has absolute power. So it is not ultimately power is decided.
No, nobody is saying that. Nobody is saying that. But we're saying that there are various areas where the center has the power. There are specific areas where the Delhi government has the power. Let it be like that. Don't try and override what the Supreme Court has said and what the existing laws are. I want to go to Rakesh Sinha. I'll come back to you, Gopal Krishna Agarwal. Rakesh Sinha, do you agree with this, that this is all for good governance and balanced administration and not really a power tussle?
It is basically a power tussle. Everybody knows that. Because, when we bring in a new legislation, there has to be a justification. There has to be demand for this legislation. From where this demand for a new legislation came? It came from the BJP headquarters because they wanted to rule Delhi through some other means. Secondly, there is also something called legislative intent. When this NCT Act was passed and the assembly was assigned to this union territory, what was legislative intent? There has to be some kind of self-governance, some part of it. Okay, you had taken 3 with the center and remaining was given to state government. So there has to be some semblance of governance, and how this governance will come about when the public officials are not under the control of the elected government. So here the basic issue is that from one hand you are giving a legislative assembly to the union territory and call it NCT of Delhi, and then you are not allowing that government to function because services is just not another department. It means every department. Still, if Parliament has power to decide which department will stay with the center, which department is a state, it can very well take some other department, say environment, forest, for instance, water resources. Yeah. But here what is happening that by taking the services and taking the absolute control of services, making a fake kind of committee in which the CM is in minority and taking absolute control means that whatever is left with the state government assembly, even that cannot be executed because the bureaucracy is not under you. So that is the point.
Okay.
If we at all there is a scheme of thinking that NCT Delhi should have an assembly, it will have an elected government. And if you give elected government, you cannot take the bureaucracy totally out of this. So here is the question. Parliament has absolute power. We agree.
Okay.
But Parliament is not competent to pass legislation on certain matters which are prohibited. This is something which is already outlined in 239 AA, as Mr. Acharya said.
Yes, okay. The number game that is playing out, we know the Lok Sabha, NDA has the numbers there, but of course in the Rajya Sabha as well, the BJD has announced its support to the government on this. Yeah, quickly, 20 seconds.
Everything being so okay about this, why this matter has again been referred to a constitutional bench? There have been certain lacuna in the ordinance and now in the bill, which has not been referred to Supreme Court, constitutional bench, because constitutional bench is going to determine whether Parliament at all has the power under 239 AA clause 7. That's the issue, that Parliament didn't have the power to totally take away the entire administration.
All right, Rakesh Sinha. Dr. Piyush Joshi, quickly, just talking about the number game, we know that, the government has the numbers in the Lok Sabha, the Rajya Sabha. As I said, the BJD announced its support today. How do you see this really panning out now?
Well, we are hopeful that the opposition will be able to defeat this bill in Rajya Sabha at least, because in Lok Sabha, we all know that the government has the numbers. But the main thing is that at least through this debate, the people of Delhi will know the malicious intent of the union government. And that is the sole purpose of fighting this bill tooth and nail. And as I'm hopeful, I agree with Agarwal sahab, I'm not going to decide what the Supreme Court is going to adjudicate. But we can certainly hope that the Supreme Court is going to adjudicate favorably in favor of the Aam Aadmi Party and the government of Delhi. There is an old shade, with which I would like to end this. As a Raja bola, Rani bola, ऐसा करके है. So I will just say कि मोदी जी बोले रात है, शाह जी बोले रात है, LG साहब बोले रात है, ये आज सुबह की बात है. So this is what happening in this case. This is what is happening in the matter of this particular bill, when the BJP is trying to say that it is constitutional. But I believe, and of course, the constitutional experts on the panel also have elaborately clarified that it appears to be unconstitutional. Matter is yet to be decided by the Honorable Supreme Court's constitutional bench.
All right, we'll leave it there. We'll see what the Supreme Court says. And of course, we hope that all of this ends soon and the Parliament logjam is cleared so that important business and legislation can be passed for the citizens and for the country. But for now, I'm going to wrap it up. PDT Achari for joining us earlier, and Gopal, Krishna, Agarwal, Dr. Piyush Joshi and Rakesh Sinha. Thank you very much for joining us tonight and sharing your perspective on the new Delhi Services Bill, which was tabled in the Lok Sabha today by the Home Minister. Thank you very much. With that, we are slipping into a short break. News and updates continue on the other side. Stay tuned.